Now, a T-cog isn't technology, it is biology.
Transformation. How did Cybertronians get vehicle forms on Cybertron? Cybertronians are made with a most natural form, versions of Cybertronian cars and jets, for example. That is how the secret military existed, so the episode of Skyquake not transforming until he scans something is very bad writing. We see original forms in the video games and at the start of Robots in Disguise. Do Cybertronians lose their old forms when they scan something? It seems the answer is uncertain. If they are forged with a most natural form, it should be within them forever. I'm also thinking of Exodus when it was mentioned that Megatron's opponents might scan junk they'll hide better among it. Why would bots give up their forms forever to do that? But all the bots in Predacons Rising still use their Earth forms. Could that just be budgeting, like when they said they wanted to create and show Cybertronian bot forms but couldn't? Or does a T-cog prioritize the new scans? I believe that if a Cybertronian really thought about looking Cybertronian again, they could change into their creation alt forms. What happens to their alt forms when they add new parts to their bodies? Like where did the new arm go in Megatron's jet form? By the way, that is Leech Maximo's arm. So Megatron is able to use that arm, it is connected to his nervous system. It should therefore follow the commands of his T-cog. Living metal is what they are made of, which can stretch and compress a bit, break apart, and reconnect to itself. The arm would move into place like his other one does. Anything a Cybertronian adds to themselves that they can't control will move as the T-cog tells it to. But we don't actually see a spot of color on Megatron's alt form. Well, it is because the design is undeniably flawed. Megatron replaced his right arm, which is his cannon arm. But his jet form still has that cannon. Megatron should have a mark of purple color and a lack of cannon, but a separate model was never made. So bear this in mind, fan artists. What happens to an alt form if a part is lost? How could Megatron transform with one arm? Why couldn't Starscream? We see Megatron transform again, with cannon still, despite lacking a whole arm. Again, the design is wrong, but he could still transform. Cybertronians can transform if the part they lost is not a vital piece for their mobility or a connecting piece. With Starscream, his arms are actually a part of his wings. That is why they get longer and why his missiles appear here. Since he transformed in front of the Autobots before, Bulkhead may have noticed this. When Starscream loses an arm, Bulkhead announces,
"You clipped his wing. He's grounded."
Starscream could lose other parts, perhaps a shoulder pad or a kneecap, but he could not part with an arm. How could Knockout replace his door? How did Ultra Magnus attach a tech hand to himself?
Do you know how hard that is to replace?
Cybertronians are not technology, but they were able to attach metal parts to themselves. My idea is that their cells slowly creep into the new additions, until it too becomes living metal. That is how Ratchet connects a hand to him, that Ultra Magnus gains better control of over time. Knockout stealing a new door could likely become a part of him later, and expert crafting of metal plates could explain how bots can get larger bodies, such as Starscream's surgery. What happens to a Cybertronian's body when they scan something? Do parts move? You see Cybertronian characters before they scan Earth vehicles. They are supposed to have another body that looks different, but it was written in the art book that they weren't able to create separate models. When it comes to Prime, you have to be a bit lax on designs. Now, since their metal is malleable, pieces would stretch out into new plating. New shapes would pop up on their bot forms. Parts within them might form into the shape of pedals or wheels. How do they get non-metal parts like seats, glass, and mirrors? Let's bear in mind that Cybertronians were never fully metal. They have tubes inside and glass parts, it seems, for their eyes. But things like cockpits and windows, what about them? Well, their cockpits are said to be from when Quintessons enslaved them and made them carry them around. Afterwards, they might have enjoyed having cockpits or spaces inside them because they could have storage spaces for themselves. That stuff would be artificial, just like their radios, things that they wanted and had installed. Even Knockout's weird zappy thing could have been something he added. In case a human jumped inside him, I don't know. I have a feeling that realistically, they put car seats into themselves at some point. See, Transformers Prime doesn't go with Transformium, so they can't just gain random elements. Transformation is quite limited in this continuity. We saw that Knockout had control over seatbelts though. Maybe some of his metal is inside it so that he can stretch out and move it. This is the question I have the most difficulty with, but horns are something Velocitronians had, so it is an invention likely added in. Headlights or any kind of lighting system could be built in to help grounders from creation. Mirrors could be natural and would fall under the next question. How do Cybertronians see in their alt forms? The ultimate question. We don't see eyes, but they seem to see perfectly fine. Although the grounders use their mirrors to get a view back, so what directions can they all see? Starscream can clearly see things behind him to dodge them, and Shockwave spotted Optimus and fired at him. Knockout did not see RC sneaking up over him, so what should we conclude? It could be possible that they can all see around them but are not constantly looking in all directions. It could depend on your type as well, but likely they are using either scanners or very tiny camera-like eyes on their bodies. Some of these scanners or eyes, whatever you pick, could be located in the mirrors. Car types can move the mirrors to get a good view. Shockwave and Starscream can look in any direction, but they need to focus. You can still sneak up on them. You just don't know where they could be looking at any given time. Can anyone become a triple changer? What about a shapeshifter? Some Cybertronians are forged with it coming naturally. Springer was a triple changer wrecker who could fly. You might be lucky enough to be created with tires and wings. However, the TCOG usually does like having one alt form scanned and saved. But Rescue Bots talks about how it is possible, it just takes a lot of concentration and energy to master it. Most bots probably don't think they can do it. A TCOG can learn to take on more forms, and Heatwave himself learned 3 alt forms. It might be an ancient art, like combination, which most don't know about. As for shapeshifters, you have to be made that way. Their bodies are just above average, changing with ease. They can even change their eye shapes and voices to perfectly resemble others. Are Cybertronians born with weapons, or do they need to be installed? Can they be uninstalled? They are usually equipped with weapons, but not everyone knew how to produce their own. Orion Pax in Exodus took lessons and was taught how to bring out his guns. In the memory loss episodes, he did not remember this. Some weapons could be installed, blades added that could be manipulated. However, everyone is shown in the books to bring out weapons as a defense when threatened. Can internal weapons be taken away? Yes, and it seems to be what happened to Robots in Disguise. Surgery could be done to pull out these stored weapons, so the corrupt council disarmed the population, giving only certain bots shitty guns instead. Why do they need a TCOG to dictate if they can transform? The TCOG is like the brain of transformation, telling the metal how to move. Without it, Bumblebee and Starscream's bodies did not know how to break apart in a safe way anymore. Why do Cybertronians only seem to stick to one alt form loyally instead of changing as often as they please? Cybertronians can change as they please to forms their bodies can handle. It could be a good strategy to stay hidden from enemies, constantly changing, but the reason they don't could be that it is exhausting and hard on the body, to a lesser extent than learning the triple change. How powerful are their weapons? Sometimes it seems that one shot kills without leaving a mark, sometimes we do get holes. Dreadwing's blaster is always to be feared, but Skyquake's bullets are a bit shitty. Sometimes it seems a single shot takes down a Vehicon without a mark, but some visibly damage them. There are 2 things to consider now. Are the Vehicons really dead, and what is being censored? I talked about in my Vehicon video how Vehicons stay down after weak blows. They are likely only stunned or faking it. So we see lights go out when Vehicons get wrecked. The rule might be if lights are still on, they aren't dead yet. But the blast might be hurting them more than you think. This show probably would contain more blood, but they just couldn't show it. Consider the lack of blood around Breakdown's body when it was drawn in the book. Or Breakdown when Mech cut him open. The Autobots were following an Energon trail, but we saw none.
I'm picking up a faint Energon signal, 3 clicks, north by northwest.
Breakdown.
But we shouldn't be getting a reading unless...
His Energon's been spilled.
When Scraplets attack the Autobots, Bulkhead says they're leaking Energon, but we don't see any.
Rancid, get the patch kit. We're leaking Energon like... Whoa!
Bots are bleeding more often than we know, we just miss it. Megatron and Ultra Magnus probably collapsed because they were way more injured than we were allowed to see. Okay, what about pain? The shock rod annoys Predaking while it gives the Predacons genuine pain here. Why would their beast forms be stronger if they are the same bodies? Perhaps the shocks get better distribution across the wider surfaces. Also, the plating is pushed out away from their internal structures, whereas a Predacon in bot form is very compressed. How about Starscream when he gets an arm blown off? He does not seem to be in too much pain. Well, we see some smoke, so I'm assuming that the blast also cauterized the wound, stopping the bleeding. How about the Vehicons RC punched who barely reacted? I think standing still, RC is much weaker. Strength comes from the movements, but let's always consider these Vehicons as pure badasses who eat pain for breakfast. Why are most flyers Decepticons? This isn't because they are more evil, the answer is because almost all natural jets of Cybertron were in the military. Starscream's choice to side of Megatron brought the Air Force to the Decepticons, with only a few Seekers bailing out to join the Autobots. Later, however, Decepticon scientists mastered the surgery that could convert grounders into flyers. For example, Megatron was not a flyer before, he'd been made into one. What limits do Cybertronians have when it comes to transforming? Not just anyone can become a jet, and Starscream could not become a car even if he tried. This topic is covered better in my mass change video. They can shift their parts around, but they can't get the blast power to become a jet, and Starscream would not be able to form the tires. In the war, Jetfire was trying to find a way to change Autobots into flyers. However, it was considered a dead end scientifically. That is, until the Decepticons eventually figured it out for themselves. So the Autobots are stuck as autos. Why are they not exact copies of what they scan? So just because a Cybertronian scans something does not mean they become perfect copies. Their bodies do what they can do, best mimic the thing, but their masks can't accommodate everything. This is why Airachnid does not look like Balor's helicopter. She is smaller. When the bots and rescue bots become dinosaurs, they still have all their car parts, and their shapes come off differently. Starscream is probably a smaller version of the actual jet he copied, because jets are supposed to be larger than cars. Dreadwing and Skyquake are appropriately sized, huge compared to Bumblebee for example. They themselves tower over Starscream. Cybertronians do not actually have car engines in the line continuity. What powers them is their own organs inside. How did Airachnid and Blades get helicopter modes? So if bots have limits, how is it that these two flightless bots became flight capable? While grounders seem capable of becoming helicopters or boats, if they have the metal that can stretch into rotors, it seems they can gain this form. However, becoming a jet could be out of their league because they aren't physically capable of producing the blast to lift off. Is Airachnid a triple changer? No, we should not consider her spider form as a separate alt form. She's just locking her legs and extending the others, which is no more complicated than a bot changing an arm into a blaster. On Cybertron, she may have had a copter-like flying form, or a full-blown spider form we never got to see. She probably had something else considering that her TCOG can scan. But the spider form is just a modification of her bot form. How could Hotshot get a jet mode? If you have seen Rescue Bots Academy, this might be on your mind. Optimus gave Hotshot a relic, and then he could transform into a jet, but he's not seen to have the parts for it. What is happening? Even the characters in this show are mind-blown because there are limits. But this relic may actually be teleporting in the parts, using that space pocket theory that G1 fans established. This same idea might exist for the Apex armor as well, breaking forth its parts from somewhere else and fitting the wearer.
What just happened?
Hotshot turned into a jet.
That is not possible or logical.
These guys should run my channel. Now we will have a longer video next time covering some super basic biology questions, such as if Cybertronians sleep or cry. The script is done already, so please have patience because the questions you want to ask are probably already included. If you haven't seen the first Q&As on the Energon and Beast related questions, please go back and watch it since the explanations are stronger if you watch them in order.
It is biology.